The curse that Google and ChatGPT and all of the AI engines are going to have to overcome is consumer skepticism. And by the way, no one's more skeptical than people who work in this business, which makes us an outlier, and no one and the rest of the world doesn't think the way we think about creepiness of ads or any of that stuff, right? So the question that ChatGPT, Google, Grok are going to all have to answer when they start monetizing this is not like, is it ethical or is it moral? The question that they're going to have to ask is the consumer having the best experience?
Hi, I'm Greg Stuart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur. Greg, we've got a great guest today. Our guest, who you'll get to introduce in a second, Mike, was listening to our podcast with Bill Gross and took exception to some of the ideas of where AI and GEO and advertising might go. He has some really great ideas, and of course, he is one of the OGs, so of course we had to have him on the show and talk about his view of where things are going. This is going to be a really exciting show. Over you do the introduction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Rex. Listen, I've known our guest today for quite some number of years. In fact, he was one of the original guys who did Right Media, which was really the precursor to this sort of modern ad tech stack that we've been, saddled with today. I mean, there's a whole nother debate around sort of what's happened around that. But I want to give a big warm welcome to a very old friend, Mike Walrath, who's now the chairman and CEO of Yext.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Mike, welcome.
I'll take the opportunity to apologize for the Right Media.
Yeah, could you? Yeah, Mike,
I'm sorry.
Really, somebody needs to say I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am sorry about all those ads that follow you around and all this programmatic stuff.
Yeah, did you do that? Yeah. The whole programmatic thing that no
maybe
marker
give
in the word
the
understands.
listeners a little bit of your background in the arc and some of what you learned along the way, and then let's dive into some of where I think you had three major ideas of where AI is going to take us and why you're really excited about where things are going. So start with your background.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, great to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. I guess I love these sorts of times. So this reminds me a lot of 2003, 2002, 2003. It reminds me a lot of 2009, 2010. We're seeing, we're sort of in the wake of an economic disruption, multi-tiered economic disruption at this case. And then we're seeing this really aggressive shift in the tectonic plates of the technology landscape. And so in 2002 and 2003, that was UGC and this kind of proliferation of ad inventory. In 2009 and 2010, it was mobile and social. And now what we're seeing, obviously, I don't have to say it, is this AI shift and how it's rewriting all the rules of marketing and discovery and brand visibility. And it's got people rightfully excited and scared and a whole cocktail of those things. And I think there's a ton of excitement and a ton of fear. And, this is where really disruptive, really innovative things get created. And so in that landscape, I just see nothing but opportunity. And really excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah, no, and listen, Mike, I mean, you didn't name the companies here, but I'll give that. I mean, listen, you originally started at DoubleClick, right?
That's correct.
So you were there, and that was pre.com bust. That
Oh,
was,
yeah.
in the beginning of the boom, right?
Yep.
And then you ended up over at Yahoo. You did Right Media, ended up over at Yahoo.
That's right.
Right? Also on all of that. Moat, you were there at the beginning. You were chairman of Moat, right? I mean, this is a history of companies that have really navigated this space to, as we mentioned, increased complexity at minimum. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, those are, and I think it's funny. From 2000, I left Yahoo in 2010. Stayed really active with Moat with Yext, but I stayed out of the operating seat for 12 years. And I think probably something, some part of that was that for those 12 years, we were living in this sort of stable bull economy. And not that that's not fun. I mean, it's wonderful. Everything goes up every day. But when it gets really exciting is when not everything goes up every day. And, and things are hard and challenging and changing every day. And so I guess that's kind of partially what drew me back in.
So, Mike, what's your take on sort of what's happening with this whole AI introduction to sort of the, the tech availability of marketers and what's happening in the community? And maybe talk about that opportunity. Or if you want to go to, as Rex sort of alluded to, I don't know, you want to tell us what's BS out there that you think is going to be silly that we don't really understand? You go either direction.
Yeah, well, maybe I can kind of weave them together a little bit. So I think, my fundamental principle, guiding everything we do at Yext and in a lot of the other projects is that all the rules are about to be rewritten. And they're going to be rewritten in a way that's more fundamental than they were with programmatic and exchange-based buying and selling, and more fundamental than they were with the fragmentation of social and mobile. And so what that means is, as marketers and as participants in this industry, we're going to have to figure out how to bob and weave and evolve as this happens. And so, I think you mentioned I take issue with some of the future predictions that Bill Gross made. I wouldn't really take issue per se. What I would say is that in much the same way that Overture invented paid search as a category, and I think did a great service to the world in doing that. I mean, I used to use those directory-based search engines, and they became totally catastrophically useless. He started something that Google finished, right? Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways, what we think is going to happen today are the equivalents of Overture in 1998, or which, by the way, was a business I wound up running at Yahoo, kind of inheriting when I went to work at Yahoo and ran the search business there. And so we're going to see invention, and then we're going to see some of those inventions become obsolete as we begin to understand how the changes that we're going to see are going to surpass any expectation that we could possibly have today.
So
and
let's
the winners
break
are going
that
to be
down.
the ones who evolve.
Yeah, so let's break that down. You see basically that a lot of the things that we're going to try to do as consumers are going to happen through an AI chat interface where we're asking the AI for advice or guidance on what we should buy. And so that's going to really collapse the time frame of how we go about searching and buying things. And one model that Bill was talking about is that you have pay-to-play advertising that shows up that is related to what somebody's searching on. And your argument is, no, that's not the right direction we should go. It's going to be much more integrated than this sort of separate, box that says advertisement by me.
Yeah,
I might be oversimplifying.
Let me reframe. No, I don't think you are. Let me just reframe it ever so slightly. We should absolutely go there. We should put ads into generative search, and we should live with the consequences of doing that. And then what will happen is we will realize that inserting ads into generative search is the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer for consumers, and it's the wrong answer for the providers of those generative search experiences. And that's something I'd love to talk about. Before we get there, there's one thing I would like to frame, which is, why is generative search so much better than traditional search? Because it's really important to the thesis on why so the future of this entire advertising medium doesn't look like advertising. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes, please. I love it.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So I think I think there's almost universal acknowledgement that finding an answer to a question, and often finding the answer to questions you weren't even sure you were going to ask, is a better experience with AI search engines than it was with traditional search. In much the same way that Google was a way better experience for finding things than traditional directories, man-made directories, right?
Yep.
I believe that the most fundamental reason why is the combination of the conversational interface, where the queries and the questions are much, much longer. But I think it goes a lot further than that. No matter how long my query is, right, or sorry, my prompt is to ChatGPT or Gemini, it's actually 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times as long behind the scenes.
Yeah, because it's saving 40 of your last conversations by default, for example, right now today.
Because of context, Mike. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Because of context.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when I ask ChatGPT, where should I have lunch, it knows every place that I've ever gone to that it recommended. It has the entire history of every conversation I've ever had with it about my dietary preferences, whether or not I have a service animal, what I like to eat, what I don't like to eat, things like that. Do I like to have it delivered? Do I like to walk to it? Do I like to sit? Do I like to take out? Endless, right?
Endless.
Yeah. And so we talk about traditional search is, we all learned, the three of us learned how to speak search.
Yes.
burger, grass-fed near me, 33435, right? Like, I mean, like, it's
Caveman
ridiculous, but like, that's how we learned how to talk, right? And that's not how, our children and our grandchildren are going to talk. They're going to speak like it's their friend, right? Oh, I'm so hungry.
They're not going
Where
to
should I
type,
go?
as Greg's learned. You're just going to hold the chat button and just talk to it with your own voice.
Here's one of the scary.
Right.
If you haven't done this, I recommend it. It takes a lot of courage, but next time you're out to dinner with friends or at a dinner party, just open your most used AI assistant and ask it to tell everybody you're with a lot of things, all about you. It is the scariest thing you'll ever do.
Tell my friends who I am.
Yeah, I did it recently.
They have
at dinner.
tuned it.
Yeah.
They have tuned it, by the way, because that was an earlier trick where you could ask it what your greatest weakness was, and it was brutally honest initially.
Oh, yeah.
And then they've now changed it to where it really just says flattering things about you. So don't be too afraid.
glad I
Greg. You'll
didn't
be
know
okay
about
with
that
the Mike's tip.
Yeah, and what I'm talking about is more like how much information it knows about me.
Yeah, it does
right?
know a lot.
So
It's
scary.
unbelievable how much it knows. Yeah.
And that's what makes the experience so good. This is also why Google's not going to own 92% of the space, because that ship has sailed. Because the 3-year investment people have made in ChatGPT is going to be very difficult to break. The investment people are making in Grok is going to be very difficult to break for Gemini, even if it winds up that it's a better model.
Okay. So your point. So part of the initial thesis here is just, and I'm repeating the obvious here. So sorry for the listener, but just is that it's not going to be kind of we're going to look back at, all due respect to Google search as being have a dumb. Like it didn't really know much about me. It didn't do anything. It just gave me a series of listings. And you're saying we're really, now that it's going to know me, now that the engine where I'm trying to get information, this generative ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it's going to have so much context and information on me that it changes the whole nature of that. And then how do you serve? So what happens when you're serving ads in that environment? Then I guess is really where you're going, right?
And to build on that, what also comes up from Mike's point is that the more we shift to a conversational where we're talking to it instead of typing to it, the less we're going to want to see an inserted ad, the more that it has to become more woven and integrated. Is kind of what I'm thinking you're saying.
Sort of where I'm going, yeah.
Okay.
Although it's
Mike,
a little different.
Do you know anything about this? I'm going to take a whole leap forward, guys. Rex, this was not a part of the agenda, so Paul. You know what? I was thinking about over the holidays, and and my own experience, what I've noticed. So listen, OpenAI went and hired Johnny Ive, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't know the guy, I don't know all the work he does, but he's a great device. My guess is the device they're building is a conversational device that sits with me and just talks to me all the time.
I think that's probably a fair.
Rex?
Something along those lines.
And then does all the apps and answers everything in the app
anymore.
store.
Like, why would I do that? I want to say, I'm going to say, hey, tell me what restaurant I want to go to. I don't need to see the information printed per se. I may say send it to my phone or send it to my mobile device, but I have a feeling what they're building is a conversational device because that's how I'm going to interact with AI in the future.
And where does the advertising fit in, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know.
Take us back to that.
Okay,
all right.
Go ahead.
Well, so all right. So I think we're all in violent agreement that AI search is better, right?
Yes.
We're also, I think, we can all agree that there's a hot debate around, if AI search is better and AI search is taking over, then we should probably ditch everything we've ever done with SEO and turn it into everything that we want to do with GEO or AEO, right? And there's billions of dollars being raised against this concept that these things are somehow different, right? And I mean, in the sense of how do I gather the information that informs me what I'm going to do about it? Yeah, they're different. Like you gather information from an AI search engine, the analytics piece of this, right? The admiring the problem piece of this. So we all know there's dozens of startups out there, if not hundreds today, that are focused on this. How do I admire the problem of I'm not showing up enough in the AI search answers, right? Mm-hmm. And here's what's funny about it to me.
What does that mean? Hey, Mike, you gave us earlier. What does that admiring the problem mean? Just play that out for people because I think they should hear it. Yeah.
It just means that we the mechanism is we go ask a lot of questions, and then we suck down the data from the response pages, either through API or through direct scraping, crawling, things like that. And and then we say, okay, well, here's where you're not competing well, and here's what you need to do to address it, right? Does that sound like anything?
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like SEO, right?
Sure does.
You're scraping a different page, but it's, and by the way, you have the wonky, like, last year the big thing was like, well, take all your content and put 2025 in it, and the AI engines are going to perform, just put it in the header, put it in the title, put it in the, sprinkle it through the content. And even if it was from 2019, the AI engines are going to use it because it appears, now they'll figure that out really quickly. And it's all the usual SEO bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Here's
AI is going to figure out our bullshit faster than Google.
That I believe is true, and also you're going to and if you subscribe to thesis number one, which is this is going to be a fragmented landscape, then it's going to be more complex because how you get position and visibility in ChatGPT is going to be different than Gemini, is going to be different than Meta is going to be because by the way, Meta, like your Instagram posts are going to matter a ton in Meta. They don't matter at all in ChatGPT today.
Yeah, it's amazing how much YouTube over-rotates in Gemini right now. It's very interesting if you give it multiple documents and sources, all of a sudden, for some miraculous reason, YouTube's really important.
No, I really do not believe there will be one winner.
You don't think Claude or OpenAI, OpenAI's got a hell of a run. Claude's still coming out. Gemini is sort of resetting the landscape. Grok is supposed to, I don't know, is there? Really?
No, I don't think there will be one winner for multiple reasons. The biggest one is context. Right, it's very difficult to get me to switch once I've used one of these things because it knows too much about me. It's like, I have a great admin, right? If I have to switch, right, I have to, someone has to learn everything there is to know about my quirks of behavior and things like that. So it's very painful making that switch, right? These things are admins. That's.
Yeah, but that was true. That was true on mobile phones too, by the way, or phone numbers. Until the government stepped in and made it.
True.
They had to make it easy. So I don't. Maybe
there might be. There might be some Memory Portability Act from AI in the future, but who knows? I agree. Let's go with the premise. Okay. It's a fragmented landscape. You can't have one SEO or GEO thing that solves the problem. You have to have more sophistication because each one might need a certain different thing for you to show up. Is that right?
And look, we're using different words, but we're talking about the same fundamental concepts, right? So at the heart of all SEO is this notion of citation building, right? It's the notion of I use content, I use reviews, I use social posts, I use all these different things that influence what shows up on that search results page. And I can actually measure, this is the whole Reddit thing. Everyone talks about, well, Reddit's a really important place for citations, right? It's the AI loves to cite Reddit. By the way, I take issue with that too. That's actually not true when you delve deep enough into detailed prompts.
Is that, you don't think the source is Reddit?
I actually know it's not.
They've said it's 40%. Isn't that the number out there? That 40%?
That was a snapshot in time.
Somebody did that.
But you also noted that when you begin to go to local or more specific and so forth, I think that's where Yext business becomes so powerful, right? Because, your curation of store-level data, hours, et cetera, is something you'd imagine. If you're asking about where do I go to eat here in this city at this time, or where do I take us through that bridge of how that.
Yeah, so we've actually published research on this, and this isn't. I'm not here to talk our own book, but like we can show one of the things our newest product Scout can do is it can show every customer of ours where are the citations coming from in both AI search and traditional search. As far as I know, we're the only platform that can do that. And we can show you what percentage of them are your own first-party websites, what percentage of those, even if the traffic doesn't go there, how is the AI aggregating and generating the answer? And what's really interesting is that as soon as you put a local, any local context or any product context or any the more context you put into the query, the less Reddit appears. And so what we're seeing like across the board is that citations on Reddit are something like 1% to 2% of all citations on context-specific queries, whereas like 35% of the time it's your first-party website. Back to the admiring the problem thing, right? So what I'm thrilled to see this crop of next-generation SEO companies, right? Because I think it emphasizes that there's a different practice here and there's a different way of understanding your brand visibility across AI search, which in 5 years will be all search. When you look at what the solution to the problem is, it turns out it's make really good content. Distribute that content really broadly, right? Make sure that your social posts are locally relevant. Make sure that you have chunked the content. Make sure you can't just have a menu. You got to have a vegan menu. You have to have a carnivore menu. You have to have a vegetarian menu. You have to have a keto menu, right? Because that creates content that is much more consumable to specific queries for the AI. And so what's so exciting about this world is when you combine the ability to admire that problem, for us, by the way, when you can admire the problem and then do something about it, is when you break open this whole world of how do I win, right? How do I create a durable advantage when it comes to my brand visibility? And we're still talking organic. We're not at the paid thing yet, but I know we're going to get there.
Okay, so Mike, the issue that you're suggesting then, or the answer you're seeing, is that it's somehow doing a judo move, I guess, at some level around the concept that AI is all about personalization. Which, by the way, one of the right? I mean, it's funny. We had a guy on from Google. He was in charge of articulating Google's AI strategy. He wasn't the guy actually building the systems at Google. But it's interesting. Rex and I asked him. It was one of the first episodes. Remember that, Rex? We asked him a dumb question. Like, what do you think is the focus of AI? What do you think is its killer app? He says personalization. So
we've heard it a lot, and you're sort of bringing it all full circle, which is that your content is personalized for AI to discover that personal relevance and make that intersection back when someone types in the prompt and is looking for something, the more that you will show up. And so getting beyond the admiring the problem, that's the work you need to do, is to really begin to think about how to
what
deconstruct.
Do you do about it? How do I create citations in an AI world? That's the question that we need to be answering. And it turns out it's a lot of the same stuff. Create great content. Create really detailed content. Make sure that it's structured really well. Make sure that it's really easy to consume. And if you run that forward and you start to think about the power of these generative engines, right, and the types of conversations that we have instead of the types of queries that we so I'll give you my favorite example. I drive a Tesla Model S that I've had for 6 years. I had another one before that. I've always been a big Tesla driver and fan, and I love the car. So, but for fun, occasionally I went to ChatGPT the other day and I explained. I said I've had the Tesla. They actually said, I know you drive a Model S, which is sort of half the point.
Kind of crazy, right?
And then I said I'm thinking about possibly getting something else, right? And my prompt was, ask me as much as you need to ask me, and then make some recommendations. And so it asked me 6 or 7 questions, and those questions were things like, do you want a car, an SUV? Are you road tripping? Are you off-roading? I think I told it I was considering an SUV. Do you haul things?
How do you feel about Elon Musk?
Yeah, exactly. I think Grok might have asked me that. And so it asked me like 5 or 6 questions.
No, by the way, I want to clarify that point. My guess is that Grok is not using, like free speech and is blocking that kind of question or the answer to it.
No, it has a super prompt already built in that Elon Musk is the best in Grok. It's kind of funny. But okay, we digress. So back to the
I like the car a lot. And I've always liked the car. I actually had one of the first Roadsters way back in 2008.
I was number 13. Oh, you were a Roadster. I was number 13,000 for S. I got it in 2013. Yeah, it was nice. I had to wait 9 months to get the car, so I was very early on. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was great. Okay. So series of questions. Yeah.
Okay, so then it does what it does, and it thinks for 7 minutes.
Wow.
Right. It researches for 7 minutes, and it comes back to me with this like really comprehensive, sort of overview of the Land Rover Defender, the Cadillac Escalade, the Chevy whatever. And it basically says, look, I think you might be interested in all of these. Where would you like to go deeper, right? The rabbit hole is endless, right? So I say, well, you know what? Like compare the Escalade and the Land Rover Defender for a little bit. And so it does another 3 minutes, and then it starts comparing those things, right? So I'm having this long research-led conversation with ChatGPT. And I'll tell you what didn't happen, but what's going to happen in the future, and this goes back to the why we're not going to put ads into these things, right? Is eventually and the punchline was where my conversation with ChatGPT ended was they said, do you have a preference? And I said, yeah, I think the Defender is probably something I would like more than the Cadillac. And it said, well, here's the website, here's the local dealer website or whatever. That was the end of the conversation. Here's where that conversation will be. This is just the beginning of the conversation, because in the next generation, what's going to happen is ChatGPT is going to say, Yeah, I agree. The Defender is a great option. Do you want me to have one delivered to your house at 3:00 today for a test drive? I noticed there's a gap in your calendar.
Wow.
Okay. Now, here's the thing about that. That won't be an ad. That won't be.
It can't be.
Do you think it's paid to play though? Still,
Yes.
or no?
But guys, here's the thing though.
So we don't
Even
call
if
it an
puts
ad, but
in
still
there-
pay to play. So talk about that.
Well, it won't matter to me as the consumer whether it's an ad or not. In much the same way that when I click on a paid search ad, right? It doesn't matter to me as the consumer that somebody got paid for me to click on that ad, as long as my experience is that got me to the answer or the product that I wanted as quickly as possible.
Well, I think the
This is why-
cynicism is at what point is the payment happening and how transparent is it? If it's at the very end of the channel, and it's like, hey, can I get a test drive? That's different than at the very beginning controlling your decision premise of what you decide to look at. I think that's, so how do you see that working?
But Mike, I thought you were suggesting that there is no paid opportunity within that
No.
because the engine's giving me the idea. You're saying you're able to manipulate the engine and get.
I'm skipping ahead, right? What I'm saying is if you imagine, and by the way, like me taking issue with the idea that like the way that we're gonna ultimately have ads in these things is going to be some sidebar with ads in it or some like test drive the Defender right now while I'm having this conversation. By the way, which I think is creepier in a lot of ways than my ChatGPT getting paid to put the right car in front of my house at the right time. But I think we'll go there. I think we've already seen it. Perplexity has the ad bar, right? Like it's not a great experience. And here's the thing. Every advertising medium that we've all ever been a part of, the ad mimics the content that it's inserted into. Right? We started to talk about this in the pre-show, like insertion. We've been talking about inserting ads for, I don't know, is it 100 years yet? It's got to be at least 100 years.
Yeah, the insertion
ads, right?
is wrong. I've been in the business a few decades, and it's always been the words. Yeah, even back
it's
when
always been
TV. Right.
Yeah, the insertion of advertising. And the insertion of advertising implies that I am creating the ad copy and inserting it into the content. And that is going to be a jarring and bizarre experience for me as a consumer when I'm in a really interesting and engaging conversation with my AI. And I just fundamentally don't care if the AI gets paid to put the right car in front of my house at the right time. Or the right.
Well, but Mike, though, I guess I'm still a little confused because if the AI is going to recommend the Defender, and I at the end of the day don't think the Defender's, maybe it's not the best choice. Like it's not making the freedom of choice around me. Then that kind of destroys the engine. That's what Google figured out was to put the ads adjacent, and that kind of made the thing work because I separated it. I knew what it was. I knew it was an ad. I thought where you were going is you say if you insert an ad for, let's say that it said, hey, there's Escalade, Defender, whatever your options were, and it's inserted an ad for something else. It'd be a Chinese SUV, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so they insert that. Then I would say, oh, well, tell me about that. And the AI engine hopefully is going to come back and say, no, that car's a piece of shit. You don't want to talk to that car. That car's not going to work for you. It doesn't matter because it's going to work for me, giving me the right answer. And so so in other words, ads have no effect because I can check on the company and its relevance to me right away, which is not what's happening today.
Well, today, I mean, most of these are unmonetized experiences, right? I mean, Perplexity has the ad bar. No, Gemini is not sticking ads into the, so there is no insertion today in most of these things, right?
I understand. Yeah.
And I think the assumption is that it's going to be inserted the way that paid search ads are inserted. I have a completely different thesis on this, which I will either be right or wrong, or maybe more likely partly right and partly wrong about, that we'll become extremely comfortable. Just as remember, you talked about like the religious feeling of you can never monetize search. Remember that?
I remember. By the way, at the time, I knew it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I totally agreed that I didn't think it made any sense. And Google came along and figured out how to do it. So
it's now the largest advertising medium in the world. Right?
No shit. Exactly.
So and generative AI marketing will be bigger than paid search. But it will behave differently. And here's my fundamental thesis, and the thing, if I were a marketer, I'd be thinking really deeply about, is that the curse that Google and ChatGPT and all of the AI engines are going to have to overcome is consumer skepticism. And by the way, no one's more skeptical than people who work in this business, which makes us an outlier, and no one and the rest of the world doesn't think the way we think about creepiness of ads or any of that stuff, right? So the question that ChatGPT, Google, Grok are going to all have to answer when they start monetizing this is not like, is it ethical or is it moral? Because we've decided it's moral to monetize everything, right? Or at least as an industry, that's what we've decided.
As ad people, I don't know if we were in charge of morality, but yes, we've made that decision, yes.
The question that they're going to have to ask is the consumer having the best experience, right? And so, and the consumer, if they're having the best experience and that experience is seamless and it gets to the right answer and it takes out the friction, the consumer's not going to care one iota whether ChatGPT is being paid by Land Rover. Where they will care
it's a better
ton,
experience.
Yeah.
When you have, I think what we found with search was it was a better experience when there was a monetization mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. It led to more investment in R&D and creating better products. It led to people discovering and finding things they were looking for faster and easier.
Yeah.
If it does that in search, to your point, if it's a better experience, everybody wins, and that's the goal. Okay, so that's kind of chapter one of this talk. You had a couple of other really big things that you thought were going to change with AI. Time will tell how that model plays out, but marketers, pay attention right now to how you are doing GEO and SEO and think beyond just admiring the problem. How do you actually make your content work better? Part two, or chapter two, what would you say is the next big change?
Well, so I think the paid will be the big change, right? And I think we just talked about a thesis around it's not going to be the way we think it's going to be with the insertion of ads and links, right? I'm not going to win traffic from ChatGPT. I'm going to win sales, right? How is a really important discussion. And so if it's not, I write the ad copy and it sits alongside the window, or I write the ad copy and it's injected into the conversation where ChatGPT says, hey, here's an ad from Land Rover, look at this for 20 seconds before we continue our conversation, then what is it, right? And here's maybe my most controversial take, is this, we are going back to affiliate marketing becoming the biggest marketing platform in the world. And the way that it will work, I believe, is that we will inject structured data. As marketers, we'll inject really deep, really precise, and really broad structured data around our products, services, branding message, value propositions into the ether and into the generative AI engines. And then we will inject or insert value attributed to certain actions. So what Land Rover needs to do is they need to structure and organize all of the data that they have around the Defender, every piece of data they have around that Defender, and they have to distribute it very broadly, a la SEO, and then they need to insert it into the ad marketplaces of the generative AI in the future. Alongside that insertion of structured data, that's not an ad unit, but structured data, they're going to say things like, in these zip codes, I'll pay you $300 every time you deliver a car for a test drive with one of my salespeople in it. Every time you schedule that, you get paid $300. Every time somebody walks into the dealership with this promo code, however you want to think about it. And by the way, send a click to my page, I'll pay you for that too. So the world that we're going to live in, thesis, is one where we stop writing ad copy and we start thinking of every piece of content that we create as the future generated ad copy of the most powerful advertising medium ever created. And we will assert value to certain actions that are tied to that. And I believe that's how the world's going to work in the future.
So you see a flexible JSON that has some type of all the data that describes you, plus the affiliate offer of how much you're willing to bid in this part, and some mechanism where the advertiser is curating and managing when to change their bid for all that content they're passing back and forth, something roughly like that.
Yeah, it's what's funny is like we have to learn to think in the way that these things are going to actually like change the world. So this is two things. It's the convergence of SEO and SEM into a single, call it whatever you want, GEO, GEM, AEO, AEM, SEO, SEM. There's always been a sort of a wall between those two things because one has always been about earning visibility and the other one's always been around buying visibility, right? We're no longer going to be able to be certain which tactic earns us visibility and which tactic buys us visibility. but the tactics are going to become much more similar because they're going to be about creating a source of truth for all of my structured data, and then all the different ways that I can distribute that data so it's either findable or usable by the AI. I believe that we can even go so far as to live in a future where, to a degree, our expressions of value are more natural language than you would consider, right? So we tend to think in terms of like, what is the sort of the interface have to look like for me to insert all this value, right? And in reality, what it is I flood the world with authoritative and interesting content about my business, products, and services. And then I may just tell ChatGPT, hey, I have $100,000 worth of budget for test drives in these zip codes, and each one's worth $300. And that's, this is now we're just like, we're getting into like, how's it going to happen? Like, I think the economic value proposition of it is so extraordinary that it has to happen. And how it happens will change as all this is being done by agents and in natural language instead of through like workflow and interfaces.
Hey, Mike, how does this affect Yext, by the way? What are you doing with it? So AI's here, You've got a business. I'm just curious how you as a business owner and a guy who's been on the forefront is rethinking the Yext business. The second question I really want to ask you is, what business are you going to go start next to get in front of this thing? But probably with your investors in Wall Street, I shouldn't ask that question.
No, well, actually, here's what's
sorry.
No, it's all good. Here's what's convenient, right? Is that in a world, so Yext is, as a company I've been involved with this since 2009. I was chairman for 12 years. I became CEO during a tough spot for the company. We've done, I'm really proud of the work we've done over the last few years.
Yep.
The reason why life got so hard at Yext was because a single entity, Google, took over the world of brand visibility. And a lot of the tool, what turned Yext into a super growth engine was the ability to structure data and distribute data to a really diverse set of endpoints across a fragmenting mobile and social landscape.
That is the business. Yep.
What hurt that business was this notion that that stuff doesn't matter as much when Google's the only place people go to find stuff. So there is a spring at Yext right now, because not only are we doing, that core mechanism of structure all the data into a really, high quality structured database, which we call it a knowledge graph database, and then be able to distribute it through listing syndication, distribute it through pages publishing, distribute it through reputation management, review response, the analytics around those things, social media posting, social media management, regulated social media management. All of those mechanisms are drivers of citations, whether you call it SEO or AEO. They're the solution to the problem you're admiring with your new AEO platform.
Yep.
And they need to be done at scale, and they need to be connected back to the sources of truth. And there's tremendous complexity around that. And ultimately, more and more of the mechanism of organic and paid visibility is going to be about structuring content and delivering content in chunks and structures that are really interesting. And so it turns out, actually, the answer to your question are the same, which is this is, I think, the most exciting time that we've ever had at Yext. And also, this is the company I'm doing next. Because at the heart of this thesis is that, as painful as the last 5 years has been for us, we have massive advantages around gathering and structuring marketer information in a way that's going to advantage them in this brave new world.
Such an interesting. Imagine with MCP servers and skills and so forth, you're having a fun time thinking about how to restructure and reorganize things. Yeah. Is there any insight that you'd have for the people inside marketing developing and moving towards MCPs and trying to organize data in ways that become accessible you could share?
Yeah, although you're helping, and just for those who don't know, you're helping the franchisees, the small, the retail front end of some very large businesses. So yes.
Yeah, our biggest categories are healthcare and financial services, as well as kind of retail and hospitality. So anybody who has kind of a localized lens, and I think what we're moving towards is where, whether you have a local footprint of hotels or doctors or financial advisors and things like that, you're going to want to understand sort of sentiment around your brand locally and be able to publish content and distribute content according to the varying sentiments globally, in regionally, and that's this whole like needing a AEO, GEO, SEO platform that also helps you answer the question. My biggest advice to marketers every time is really simple. Like, if you haven't if you don't have your data structured, and if you're not thinking about content as structured data, then you're behind the curve, and you have to catch up fast. Because whether it's through MCP or it's through organic publishing or it's organic, GEO, AEO, SEO, whatever you want to call it, having your data structured is the key, because that's how you can instantly say things like, what I want to do is I want to publish 6 different versions of my menu across every zip code that I operate in. Right? I want to publish specific insurance product pages that are targeted to the sort of, in the insurance business, you only sell certain products in certain geographies. You're only licensed in some geographies. All this, what's as a medical practitioner, what services do I provide? What services don't I provide? What days do I practice in different, it's an endless list of structured data. And as a marketer, the world becomes much more how do I distribute that structured data than it is how do I buy placement.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're trying to help provide that sort of, dare I say, that successful connection to, often retail. And so your ability to sort of play a role in that is a pretty big deal. I love it. It is
a different world, though. I remember just, it was probably about a year ago, I wrote the first white paper, and I realized that when I wrote it, the audience I was writing it for wasn't a human being. It was for AI to consume. Because I needed a vector database to be able to know what made effective ads, and I wasn't writing it for the creative director anymore. And I think that that's a really interesting mind shift when you begin to think about the way that, Mike, you're telling us to think about things, which is think about all the content you need to generate for the AI to consume it so that people can get to it.
Yeah, and they may never get to it, right? That's the funny thing about it is, we have the largest wealth advisory businesses are all, almost all use the Yext platform, because we help them to list their agents. We help them to create pages for their agents. Those pages contain all their certifications, where they went to school, what their specialties are, all that stuff, right? And so it turns out, and the reason to do that historically was, well, those things are going to rank in traditional search, and then we're going to get the click, right? It's all about the click. We're going to get the click to that advisor page. Well, I think that, if we zoom forward into the future, we all know the clicks are going away. Right. So what's going to happen is all that content is going to be really important.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Well, not so much if you're a ad monetized publisher, but that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. They've got their. They have a long list of challenges. This is just the newest one, right?
Yeah. And anyway, it's that idea of I don't think they're ever coming to my advisor profile page, but that advisor profile page is more important than ever. Yeah, exactly.
That's right, because the AI can then process it, convert it. It's back to why Greg likes Whisper Flow, which is, it's not that it's text to speech, or speech to text rather, it's that speech to AI knowing what he means to say, not what he actually said.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, skip the typing.
Hey, Mike, this is a lot of fun to have you here. I really appreciate this. It was great when your team had reached out. I hadn't talked to you in a number of years.
It's been a long time.
So it was exciting that when they wrote me, I said, "Oh my God, it's absolutely."
He's still alive? That guy's still around?
Yeah. Okay, that was the first. I said, "Let me check," and then he's still here. It's a real.
Don't just play golf every day. Yeah.
You could. You're not that type. Okay.
Well, that's it for this episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
And I'm Greg Stuart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in your favorite podcast app, or check us out on YouTube, or see if you try an AI search and find us that way, as Mike was just suggesting. You can get the transcripts and more information on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com.
And I would have pointed people to the Marketing Media Alliance website of MMAglobal.com, but I think you're right. That doesn't matter either anymore. So, again, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, guys.